Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's Robert Phoenix here, and we'll be going fully live in a few minutes. Just wait for some people to show up. Let me go over to the Facebook page and drop a link in so people can come over if they want, if they like. We do that. Okay, here we go. Jumping in. Okay, I got the link up. We're good to go. It's happening. It's all happening. Let's see who's in the chat tonight. We got the purple one back again. Hello, purple one. There's Jenny. Hi, Jenny. Chinook. Judy. Hi, Joan. There's Kathy. Hey, Kathy. Belated happy birthday to you. I hope you had a wonderful day. And glad you're here. Did I talk about the parasite conspiracy thing? Wow. Well, I don't think so. But we can certainly jump into it. There's Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer. And Christine. Missy. There's Kate and Bonnie. Hi, Bonnie. Shasta Fogg. Ani. There's Lynn. What's going on, Lynn? There's Shari. Hi, Shari. What's going on? So when you say the parasite conspiracy, which parasite conspiracy are you referring to? Because there's a bunch of parasites that run the planet. And that's a pretty big conspiracy. Then there's like the Harold Couts Vela, black goo, space parasite conspiracy. There's a lot of different parasite conspiracies. Then there's the parasite conspiracies that were parasites that were created at Blum Island or Plum Island. I was thinking of Blum, the guy that did the Purge movies. Then there's the stuff that's coming out of the CDC. What is it? Fort Derrick. Apparently some Ebola strains have gotten out of Fort Derrick and are now in the wastewater around Fort Derrick. Ebola is not a parasite. It is a contagion. It is a bacterial contagion, but it's not necessarily parasite. So we've got a number of different conspiracies that we can jump into. Which one are you referring to? We're in previous, you were going to talk about something to do with parasites. Oh, yeah. Okay, no. I was talking about infestation, which I started, and so maybe I was going to get into parasites in food, but I was talking about infestations or parasites that had attached themselves to the body, the governing governmental organizing body, aka the people of the United States of America, and the parasitic relationship and the infestation that's taking place on many different levels that we're still trying to deal with. I think that's what I was referring to. And I did a whole week of shows about that. And I'll return to that. Maybe I'll do that this week. But there's so much going on with the Epstein stuff that I'm sure it's going to grab a lot of my attention over the next few days. I might even do a show tomorrow because there's so much happening. You know, and we're in, micro news cycles right now. And I think the Jeffrey Epstein death rates right up there with the Lee Harvey Oswald death. It's got that kind of political and social import. And it also kind of lines up with Trump and Kennedy in a weird way. We didn't have somebody go in to that facility. By the way, I was looking at that facility. That's a federal prison in Lower Manhattan and it's been called a gulag, okay, and it's probably, I mean, geographically, it's north of Cuba, right? But it's just as apparently it's just as bad. So that prison, I'll read you some stuff about that prison. I'll read you how hard it is to commit suicide in that prison when we get into this, and what the conditions of those cells are, and how those people are locked up inside that prison. They call it Guantanamo North, that prison. Jasper's shedding tonight. I love you, Jasper, but I've already had dinner. So we're going to get into that tonight, but it's the biggest death, I think, politically. This is bigger than Bernie Madoff, way, 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 way bigger than Bernie Madoff. It's bigger than Kenneth Lay, although Bernie Madoff is still alive, obviously. He's in jail. Who knows who's in jail with Bernie? I don't know. We don't know. We don't know who's in there playing Madoff. We don't even know if he's in jail. We don't know. We don't know. We could hypothesize and try to throw darts at this thing and have a pretty kind of informed opinion based on a lot of different factors, but we don't know. Even with Ken Lay, who supposedly died just before he was about to hit the stand on his Enron case, I think he was extracted. So we're going to get into Jeffrey Epstein tonight. Obviously, it is the topic du jour. Everybody's talking about it, and we will be talking about it until there's another shooting, in which case we'll be talking about the next shooting. And that's the way these things work. So one of the things that I'm going to be looking at tonight, along with the Epstein stuff, is there's a very heavy scene going on in Hong Kong right now, and it's taking a back seat to a lot of the news that's been front and center that we've been digesting. You know, the two supposed shootings. By the way, if you didn't see Friday's show, you may want to check it out. Some interesting stuff in there that I was able to unearth. So you may want to check that out. So yeah, we've had these shootings. Now we have Epstein, and all hell is breaking loose in Hong Kong. So tonight, there was a very specific day when Hong Kong was handed over to the Chinese. It was July 1st in 1977 at midnight. So we're going to look at that chart, and we're going to look at what's happening synastrically up to the moment. And I'm going to give you one of the reasons why I think astrologically this is occurring in Hong Kong. And the other thing I'm going to look at tonight, and I'm going to do something a little bit different than what we normally do, although it's all par for the course, is I had a good conversation with a friend of mine on Friday, and really mind-blowing situation. I mean, a really, really mind-blowing situation. And I should actually I haven't had time to dive into the chart yet, but a friend of mine has a daughter who was coming home from work, and she was driving through a town, and she was driving the speed limit, and she was going through an intersection. She had a green light, and there was a guy who went against the light and walked out in front of her car, and it was about right around midnight-ish. She hit him. Guy went flying through the windshield, flying through the freaking windshield. And of course, there's a big scene there, cops, car gets impounded. The guy goes to the hospital, and there's nothing, there's no news, but it's a big news deal in that town, in that specific town. It was very heavy, very, very heavy. And then finally it was released that the guy was homeless, and he'd actually been doing that all night long, according to witnesses. He'd been walking out in front of, he was a young guy too. He'd been walking out in front of the lights all night long. And cars are stopping and screeching their brakes. And she just wound up hitting him. And the guy died. And that's not really what I'm going to talk about. But it's one of those things where all of a sudden your life can change, you know, kind of in a heartbeat, literally, right? And I have my own theory that he wanted out. You know, there are people if you are on a death trip, and you can get on a death trip, reality will help you. Reality will assist you in your exodus from this domain. But what I wanted to talk, I was talking with her, and this is what we talked about mostly, was that experience. But she asked me, what happens if you have a bad chart? Or what happens if you have a bad transit coming up? And I thought about it. I thought, well, that's a really interesting question. Well, why don't we explore that tonight on the show? That's what I said. Well, I'll explore it on Sunday night. So we're going to do that tonight. And those will be I've got a couple charts, and they're kind of interesting for different reasons. So we're going to look at that tonight, and I'm going to try to give people some examples of what you can do when you go through difficult transits. And there are some transits that are, like, I haven't broken down her chart yet, but I'd love to see where Mars was in her chart when that happened, or where Uranus was in her chart when that happened. But when I look at transits that can be difficult, generally I'm looking at Saturn out. Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, those transits. And I think those are the transits that we can wrap our heads around because they take time. And so we'll look at that tonight. And that'll be kind of the headline, or that'll be the playbook for where we're headed. So we got Epstein, some various Epstein charts. We also have Hong Kong, which I'm going to be looking at, chart of the moment. And also, is there such a thing as a bad chart, or bad aspects, or bad transits? And if so, what do you do with it? Okay, so let me check in with you guys in the chat room. Let's see what's going on. Let's see, Robbie calls it 2 weeks. Yeah, you know, I know, right? But that was not rocket science, you know. Like, I can't really take credit for that. That was like so easy. This was so easy. This was, I mean, if you had any inkling of how this game works and who these people are and what the odds are, it's like simple math. So yeah, you know, I did talk about it, and you rolled this over a couple of weeks ago, but it's not that big a deal. It's not that big a deal. I didn't see it happening. You know, he was either going to be suicided, or he was going to be killed, or he was going to be extracted. And we saw the one event where theoretically he was roughed up, from what I heard. That's what I heard. I heard that the first time that he went to the hospital, that he was roughed up. When I mean roughed up, I mean roughed up. Like in a headlock, and basically being raped by 5 to 6 different men. That's what I heard. That's what I heard. The first time he supposedly tried to kill himself. There's no way. There's no way. Even if he was off suicide watch, which he was, apparently. This was back in July, they took him off suicide watch. When I describe where he was, killing himself pretty hard. Pretty hard. So there would have had to have been a major distraction, which I think there was. Like, there was something going on at that time. Maybe the cameras were down. Of course, anytime anything important really happens, there's no cameras. We never see any real video, you know, never see any video. Like, for instance, there was a big nightclub shooting in Dayton last week. Everybody's got a cell phone. Was there any cell phone videos of any of that? Any? No. What about Walmart? Walmart is CCTV city, man. They are zooming in on you the minute you walk through that store, and there are cameras everywhere, everywhere. And what do we get from Walmart's video? Garbage. We got one image of some dude walking in who's not very discernible. Okay. So apparently the cameras might have been out in his cell. Right. So we're going to get into that tonight. I am going to read you the description of the place that he was staying at. And pretty harrowing. It sounds pretty harrowing to me. I wouldn't want to be there. It was not some cush country club setting for Mr. Jeffrey Epstein. Anyway, we'll get into that. Let me check in with you guys in the chat room, see what's going on. Yep, Epstein had hidden cameras everywhere in the island. Oh, yeah. Where in the world is Ghislaine? Hi, Chris, waiting to read for the Barbarians. Okay, here we go. Yeah, Steve and Chris are in the house tonight. What's going on, guys? Steve recalls Maxwell's Saturn on Epstein's son right now. Yeah, I mean, the thing that we looked at with Epstein was that there was Saturn on his Chiron, right? Saturn was on his transiting his Chiron. I have some very unique, I think, transits as they relate to Donald Trump and Epstein. We're going to look at that tonight. We're going to see how many astrologers talking about Donald Trump and Epstein in their charts. And tonight we're going to dive into that. All right, so without further ado, let's get going. Let's get this party started and crank it on up. So, of course, we always start off the show with the chart of the moment, which I have up here. Give me 1 second. There it is. Let's do a little screen share. And voila. Chart of the moment. There it is. So when I started, when I hit go tonight, when I pressed go, the ascendant was at 9 Aquarius, which is cool. You get a little Aquarian energy starting to show off. And what else do we have? We've got the moon right now coming up, conjuncting Saturn. So we have moon in Capricorn. Yes, and then we have moon conjunct Saturn. So it's a sober mood. A sober mood descends upon the hill country as we have a brief respite in the cycle of chaos. Together we meditate upon the nature of reality and what the hell happened to Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, so there it is. There is the Moon-Saturn conjunction. And we have Pluto, of course, retrograde. You got all these planets retrograde. Jupiter is now free. Jupiter's been free from the clutches of retrograde. It's moving forward. And we're going to get Jupiter past this square with Neptune in the not so distant future. When is that coming? Well, I'll figure it out. But it's soon. Trust me. Here, I hate it. I've got to be. It's the Virgo. I mean, I hate saying soon. Give me a second. I'll give you the exact day. Exact freaking day. But it is soon. I can tell you that right now. All right, here we go. Let's see. Jupiter Sagittarius. It's going direct. Jupiter and Sagittarius. It's direct tomorrow. It's direct tomorrow. Okay, so it's going to be past Neptune. Thank God. Oh, wow. Jupiter's taking a little bit of time getting cranked up here. Jupiter's kind of old. Jupiter's kind of, getting those joints out. Oh, yeah. I'm going forward now. 19 degrees, October 7th. That'll be an interesting time. I think October is going to be a fantastic month. Of course, we're having a live event here in the Hill Country. And for everybody that's signed up tomorrow, you're all going to get an email with instructions with what to do and where to go. If you haven't gotten your lodgings yet, tomorrow we'll have it all squared away so you can show up on Thursday all the way through till Monday. Okay, so just hang on. I haven't sent anything out yet. Yours truly is working on it. Your humble host and most gracious ambassador is working on it. Okay, so we're looking at the 7th of October, really, when it really finally gets. By that time, Neptune is going retrograde and moving further away from Jupiter. So Jupiter's coming at us. Neptune's going away from us. That means more Jupiter, less Neptune. How about that? Could be very interesting. Could be a very interesting time. I think it will be. We need a little more Jupiter and a little less Neptune because, man, it has been one crazy cocktail, has it not? So tomorrow, Jupiter really finally goes fully direct. And I like the sound of that. I'm in favor of that. We're going to have Capricorn, Pluto in Capricorn. And it's retrograde, but it is going to go direct also in October. So that's the 3rd of October, and that's at 20 degrees. So we're going to have Jupiter already fully direct at that point, but Pluto will be direct. And let's see, Saturn will be direct. And then the only retrograde mischief with the outer planets besides Neptune is Uranus. Uranus goes all the way back to 2 degrees. Wow. 2 degrees. And what's happening with Uranus? I think it stops at 2. And let's see, we got come on now. Okay. So Uranus goes direct on January 11th. And Neptune will also be direct during that time. So all the planets finally are moving forward first of the year. But we're going to go through an eclipse that's going to be pretty epic, I think, in December. That's on the 26th. In any case, Jupiter's moved forward. Hallelujah. Praise Jove. Okay, so let's go back here. Back to the chart of the moment. Talked about our Jupiter moving direct, still in square here. Finally moving past the bounds of Neptune in October. Chiron's at 5 Aries is going to play a role in tonight's discussion on a number of charts. We have Uranus at 6. Remember, it does go all the way back to 2. All the way back to 2. So, we're going to get back to those early degrees of Uranus, and I would expect some seismic activity during that retrograde cycle. And let's see, what do we have here? We've got Venus and the Sun and Mars. That yacht is still active, and it's pointing right at the Sun right now. 19 degrees, 18 here, Neptune, 21 with Pluto. So the Sun has replaced Mars as part of this this focal point with the yacht. Because if we go back last week, it was Mars that was at the focal point, and now the Sun has replaced it. So yesterday, when did Epstein die? Yesterday, right? Theoretically, yesterday morning. Sun was at 18 degrees and still within the 3-degree orb and exact on the orb side with Neptune. So Epstein died, evaporated, extracted right there at 18 degrees and part of that yacht. That's very interesting. It points to, when we look at the chart, we'll see that the Sun was in the 12th house when all this went down. It's an interesting chart to look at. and I'll be looking at Epstein's planets in relationship to the death. And I'm of the mindset, I thought, here's what I thought. I thought that he's probably been extracted. My sense is that he's been extracted and he's probably dead. That's what I think. That's what I think. And you'll see why you'll understand this so I think they probably got him out of there, but I'm not sure he's still alive. Now, a lot of people think he's in some witness protection program or whatever. Look, they've got plenty. They have plenty of stuff on Jeffrey Epstein, whether it's the NSA, whether it's military intelligence, which is what Steve Pieczenik talks about. They got plenty of shit on this guy. They got a 2,000-page document. It's unsealed now. Now this guy, DeSantis, the governor of Florida, is going to swing into action. And he's going to go after some people that are at very close ties with Epstein in Florida. This DeSantis guy is no bullshit. He's an interesting character. He was a former Navy SEAL. And I think he's one of the few people, probably at a governmental level, that may have some degree of integrity. You know, he may have some degree. I don't think there's anybody that's truly clean, right? But if you're crawling through the desert and you get a glass of water and it's got some sand in it, you're probably not going to complain very much if it's got a little sand. You know what I'm saying? You know, so there's some people who have some sand, and there are some people whose water is so murky and brackish that you can't partake of it. You can't drink of it. We got Scorpio on the midheaven just right now, chart of the moment. It's a good time to get into the world at large, peel back the layers, put our high beams on, see what we can discern, figure out, illuminate, as it were. It's a pretty good chart. There's the moon in Capricorn is not an easy moon to have. Just in a natal chart in general. If you've got one, it's okay. Don't worry about it. As you get older, that moon's going to just soften right up, right? Your best days are ahead of you emotionally. If you've got moon in Capricorn, trust me, this is true. But you're going to wake up tomorrow on Monday with the moon in Capricorn, and it's going to be moving through Capricorn, conjuncting more of Saturn and conjuncting more of Pluto. So it's going to be very interesting tomorrow with that Moon-Pluto conjunction. Keep your eye on the markets tomorrow, because Monday's usually a big day, and last Monday the markets took a beating, an absolute beating. So keep your eye on the markets tomorrow. It's going to be an interesting Monday, I think, financially. That's my sense here. Also, look at the housing markets. Look at mortgages. Mortgages are down. People are not buying houses. They're just not buying houses. And there's a lot of inventory on the market too, right? So we may see some news regarding housing tomorrow. So I think the market's going to going to play a big role in the news cycle for tomorrow. If you are invested in money, like if you've got a pretty significant investment, that Moon-Pluto conjunction might freak you out a little bit. Might freak you out. Gold is rising, by the way. Usually doesn't bode well for the dollar when that happens. And the return to Bitcoin, or the Bitcoin prognostication of John McAfee, he said it was going to skyrocket. Hasn't quite jumped out of the stratosphere yet. So we're gonna remain a bit bearish, as they say, on the cryptos at this point in time. At least I would. Speaking of McAfee, his latest transmission, the most interesting man in the world, basically told Americans, you better arm yourself to the teeth. That's what McAfee was saying. But that's been McAfee's, that's been his strategy all along. He's an arm to the teeth guy. So I think really the thing that we want to watch out for this week is we've got Mercury in Leo now. It's just moved into Leo. We've got this kind of heavy duty moon tomorrow morning, because it's really fascinating. I was watching TV. We were at a place having a burger on Saturday, and you'd think they'd be talking about Jeffrey Epstein, and you think that the 24/7 news cycle would be invested in. Nope, 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 nope. They were all talking about guns, victims, guns, 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 guns. So that's going to be the topic du jour is guns. You're going to hear more and more about it, and I would not be surprised if we have another false flag in the not so distant future to drive this point home that Americans need to be disarmed. This is going to continue to happen until theoretically the day comes when they're going to do it. They're going to do whatever it takes in order to make it happen. Okay, it may not be under this president's watch, but the shit's not going to stop. I'm telling you that right now. It will not stop, and that's kind of a bummer. So you have to take care of yourself. You have to really know how to navigate through these so-called crises. Mercury is in Leo, and it is going to be moving into square with Uranus over the next few days. And that's very, very sudden pronouncements, right? Those are sudden sorts of perceptions. And Mercury's in its detriment in Leo. So you got to be cool with Mercury and Leo a little bit, right? Because it tends to be very dramatic. It's thinking with the heart, and not the heart in maybe the way that we think of the heart, but it's like, kind of, it could be sentimental thinking, or it can be thinking that's overly dramatic. We're going to be in that dialogue around children, obviously, with Mercury and Leo. And the square to Uranus is disruptive. So very disruptive. So we'll probably get some news over the course of the next few days of things that are things are going to be disruptive, probably shocking. Wouldn't surprise me in the least. We got a nice biquintile with Mars and Pluto. I like biquintiles. We haven't talked a lot about quintiles and biquintiles. We got a couple of them this week. We've got that Mars biquintile to Pluto. Okay, so here's Mars, there's Pluto, that's 144 degrees. Isn't that an interesting number? And biquintiles and quintiles are a lot like trines, with the exception, and this is what I've heard, is that biquintiles and quintiles are like a divine gift. And trines are what you bring into this lifetime, theoretically, that you're good at. The biquintile is something like a gift or a blessing that's bestowed upon the individual. It has nothing to do with like prior lifetime stuff. It could be something that perhaps is part of your divine spark or your original spark that you're bringing with you into this lifetime, or it can be a benediction of sorts. So they're generally pretty good, and they can represent kind of elements of genius, and we've got two of them happening right now. And Jupiter's got the biquintile. It's just moving into biquintile phase. How about that? Oh, with Uranus. Sorry, I got it mixed up. Yep. Well, that's cool. That's another 144 degree angle. That's a great aspect. Jupiter that allows us to break down facts very quickly, have alternative points of view. It can really accelerate our ability to put pieces together in ways that are nonlinear. So that's great. I like both of these biquintiles. And then what is it? It was to Mars to Pluto. Well, to me, that represents staying power and life force and vitality. And this will not last very long. It'll go out of orb. So how do we take advantage of these biquintiles? Well, they're in your chart, right? You just have to figure out where they're happening. You look at where the house is, you look at where Jupiter is, and then you look at where Uranus is in your chart, and then you can look at sort of where that action, where this kind of, how shall I say it, fairy dust, or I don't like the word fairy dust, it's kind of lame, where this frisson is taking place, and it's brief. In this instance, it's kind of brief. In the natal chart, it's not so brief, but in this instance, it's brief, and they're almost like sliding doors or portals. And if you pay attention to them, you can see where there can be some interesting, energetic kinds of opportunities, especially with a Mars-Pluto biquintile. Very interesting stuff. And then the quintile is half of 144, so it's 72. Very similar. So very, very similar. I don't think there's a quintile happening in this chart right now, but it'd be a 72-degree angle. So if you have something that looks like a Q or looks like a BQ, those are quintiles and biquintiles, and look at where they are in your chart, and I urge you to explore them, because those are hidden gems, you know, little golden nuggets that you can pan for, and can give you kind of an insight into perhaps a hidden talent, gift, or skill that you have always known was there, or touch into from time to time. So they're pretty cool. I believe it's I think it's the quintile that's called the master degree. I was getting too confused, but 144 sounds pretty masterful to me. But I assume I've always assumed that, or connected it with the actual quintile itself, right? And if you focus on it, that's something where if you give energy to that aspect, that you can kind of animate it and bring her closer to the surface, and it can help you with some level of mastery where you already have it. It's like you already have it, right? Okay. That's the chart of the moment. That's what we got cooking right there. Put back into the widescreen. Let's see where you guys are in your chat, your conversation. Let's see, where'd you go? I just have the screen. Give me a second. There we go. Oh, and for all you people out there who have questioned my technological abilities, I came loaded for bear tonight. I got it together. What else do we have here? Hey, there's Janelle. Oh, there's Heather. Hey, what's going on, Heather? Nice to see you. There's Michael. Hey, Michael. Anna. Hi, Anna Wilson. Let's see, who else we have in the chat? Mary Willis, he's not dead. We'll never see him again. CIA, Interpol, info on his ties to international crime syndicate side. Big takedowns. Okay, I'll believe that when I see it. Okay. Hi, Anna. I'll believe that when I see it. I'm sorry. I don't mean to rain on anybody's parade. They've got so much shit on Jeffrey Epstein already. They have shit on him. Tons. The NSA, military intelligence, the CIA, the Mossad, they know most of each other's secrets. They can barely keep anything encrypted. They're a bank. They know where the bodies are buried. They don't need more for Jeffrey Epstein. I'm telling you, they don't need more from him. And he's just a straw man anyway. So maybe he is alive, but if he's alive, then but what else are they going to get out of him? They know plenty. The only thing that would help them in the case of him being removed is that perhaps now that he's out of the picture, they may have a more hermetically kind of sealed opportunity to just look at the actual testimony and the people versus the personality. But I don't know. I'm not somebody who, if he's alive, I think he's in Israel. That's what I think. If he's alive. And I think he was probably extracted. But why don't we just jump in? enough of me speculating. Let's get into some of these charts, which I think are really interesting. And Mary, by the way, I don't mean to, come down hard. I have been listening to this stuff about the indictments are going to be in. Look, I've been listening to this shit for years now, okay? And it's not just the QAnon stuff. And I know there are people who are invested in Q. I think Q is part of the Great Awakening. I do. I really do. I think the whole Q thing has been very important on some level, right? But I've been reading about this stuff years ago. And it was with Nasara, and it was all this other Leo Wanta money, right? There was that stuff, and that never happened. Then it was the whole David Wilcock show, and the white hats and the black hats and the cabal. And David Wilcock was about as accurate at predicting events as Jasper, okay? Then it was like, oh, well, this is all going on now. And just wait, there's this, and there's this, and there's this, and there's this. And, we got all these indictments and all these affidavits. Okay, fine. I want to see some shit. I want to see some real shit. And I don't want to see some fake fucking Jeffrey Epstein death, ritual, or removal, okay? I'm ready for real shit. And I think most people are too. And if you have the patience and the wherewithal to stay with all that narrative, fine. Hold the space. Because quite frankly, I don't. I've been waiting for a long time. All these different scenarios. So, and if I'm proven wrong and all the stuff starts popping like corn and we get the popcorn and then we can sit back and watch it, I'd be happy. I'd be happy to sit here and go, wow, that was great. I didn't see it coming. Look at what's happening. Praise the Lord. I'd be the first person. I'd be so thrilled to have been wrong about not seeing this stuff. Trust me. I don't have any investment. If we come out of this clean and the planet has an enema, I'm fine. I'd be happy to be wrong. Okay? I gotta see it. Sorry. I gotta see it. I gotta see stuff happen. For the most part. That's my 2 cents. Okay? All right, let's get into this. And again, it's not meant to demean anybody who is invested in these ideas or in this or postulation. That's fine. That's fine. And you can hold the space for that. Okay? You can hold the space for it. And the bottom line is that for the most part, we don't know. Okay? We don't know. We can speculate. I can look at charts and I can make some calculations based on what I'm seeing. Sometimes the intuition kicks in and you get it, right? But because you read something or hear something from somebody, or it looks like, you just got to be careful. You got to be, and maybe it's all there. It's all part of some big tableau that's just going to all of a sudden, all the pieces are going to fit together like a big, 2,500 or 3,000 piece jigsaw puzzle. And if that's the case, then man, love to see it. Bring it on. Okay. And again, I just want to make sure that people, not pointing out people and saying you're wrong. I'm just personally giving you my sense and feeling about this stuff that's been going on for a long time. And it's all pre-Q. So I guess I'm bringing my pre-Q baggage into this shit. Okay. All right. So let's get into some Epstein stuff. Jasper, go back to your perch. When you're over there on the other side, I get into a better flow. It's like you're grounding the other side of the computer screen. What do we have here? Okay. Oh, Jasper. Yes. Okay, what do we have? Okay, I'm going to pop this chart up. This is This is Epstein and the synastриc murder chart, or murder, death, extraction, whatever you want to call it, whatever happened. Here we go. All right. So apparently he was confirmed dead, theoretically. Again, I say theoretically, at 6:39 a.m. Okay, there it is. That was the time that they theoretically confirmed him dead. All right. So that means that we could cast a chart on Saturday, August 10th, New York City at 6:39 a.m. That is the inner ring, what we have right here, okay? Now, Epstein, I cast with, what was it? What was the rising on? I had his son in the 10th house. Oh, we'll see. So again, this was one of those kind of quick sorts of rectifications that I did. Ascendant final degrees of Aries and Jupiter in the second house in Taurus, because of all the money, right? All the kind of gratuitous stuff that was around him. You know, that sort of gave me this kind of sense that Epstein, might have been right around this degree. Also, his infatuation with young women, sex with young women, right? We're dealing with Leo, children, fifth house, Pluto, South Node. So that was what I came up with. January 20th, 1953, I threw it out there at 11 a.m. It also put some interesting stuff on his midheaven, right here, vertex, Saturn, Pluto, true node, and then Chiron right there, which we talked about before. Okay, so let's get into the nitty gritty now. All right, so this is Jeffrey Epstein's Pluto. Pluto, what is Pluto? It's the planet of death. The planet of death, obsession, sex, birth, conception, right? That's Pluto. The underworld, drugs, the occult, dark erotic shit, right? Pluto, so Jeffrey Epstein's Pluto, which is retrograde in his chart, was right on the ascendant right there of that event at 6:39 a.m. What do we have here? We've got a Mars-Pluto conjunction. Mars-Pluto conjunction. This, for all intents and purposes, could be violence. Now, transiting Mars is right on the ascendant. Remember that. Remember transiting Mars, or Mars on the ascendant. We're going to see that come up again in another chart here. Uranus, right here, is conjunct the true node. Like that, right? Bang. Transiting Uranus, his natal Uranus is at 6. Where is it? 666. No, it's Uranus is at where is it? It's transiting Uranus. Should read 15 Cancer, and then the true node is at 17 Cancer. That's interesting, because that true node was at 17 when Jeffrey Epstein got picked up. It happened quickly, right? Did we expect Jeffrey Epstein to be picked up like that? No, not at all. And it's when the true node hit his natal Uranus, it's like, bang, see ya. Okay? Just picked him up right off the streets. So the true node now has moved just off of that slightly, right? Let me see what we have here. Transiting true node. Let's see what we got. That's going to be, it's at 17. It's still at 17. Yeah, 17. So 17, 15. So when it hits 17, 15 degrees, boom. So it's going to be moving to 15, but they're still conjunct, right? So we've had that true node on 17 degrees for, God, almost 2 months. There's that conjunction. Check this out, okay? check this out. His south node was in the 12th house of that event. So that's a hospital. He was in a hospital theoretically. Prior to that, he was in a jail/prison cell. Very, very 12th house, and there's the south node. His south node, right there. Sun-Venus conjunction. But to me, the most shocking is his Pluto conjuncting the ascendant of that moment, right? And then we have a Mars-Pluto conjunction. To me, this is representative of some level of foul play, right? To me, this is representative of here and then not here. Now, whether or not he's alive or dead, I tend to think, here's what I think, okay? I would tend to think that I don't think he died. I don't think he died. I don't think he died. Pluto here on the ascendant would begin to kind of build that narrative, right? But we're also dealing with this yod. And there's Neptune. And we get into Neptune, we get into what? Deception. And what do we have right here? Jeffrey Epstein's Mars and Venus. Right, Jeff Epstein has Mars and Venus conjunct in Pisces at 16 degrees, and they're conjunct Neptune. Currently, Neptune is at 18, so they're in conjunction. And Mars, Venus are in the 8th house, which is the house of death. So we have echoes of death here. We have Pluto on his Pluto on the ascendant, a conjunction with Mars, no less, right? Then we have Venus and Mars in the 8th house, the house of death. But there's Neptune, and things are not what they seem. They're not what they seem. It's very interesting. We also, and I've talked about this before, when I saw his chart, I said he had Chiron conjunct his Neptune. It was like, time's up. Time is up for this dude, okay? So it was either going to be this or the extraction, but he was not going to stay there. There was a reckoning that he was going to have to pay. And by the way, if you think Ghislaine Maxwell is going to be found and rounded up anywhere, you can, unless it's her clone, forget it. Ghislaine Maxwell has ties all the way up to the Queen of England, okay? And the Queen of England is one of the most powerful people on the planet. And if you think Ghislaine Maxwell, unless she's going to be thrown out there to be sacrificed, she's not going to turn up. Forget it. That's my take. That's my intuitive take, okay? But his time was up, right there. So what we have is we have a very complex network of inconjuncts, right, with his Saturn, right, Chiron, even Mercury on his south node, right here, inconjuncting with the sun. And Neptune also in conjunct with the sun. It's not his sun, but with the sun. And his Chiron's playing a role there, and his Mars and Venus are going along for the ride. And they're part of the yacht. And right here, right there, Sun-Venus conjunction, is Pluto is almost at the focal point. So I would say that there's some prestidigitation here. That there's prestidigitation. That his death is not what it appears to be at all. And it's right there. Mars, Venus, conjunction Neptune, 8th house, slippery, right? There are things happening here, very sophisticated on some level. But then we have this death, right? It's right there. And also part of the inconjunct as well. Now, that's not to say that he may not be dead, because there's just something about this aspect, right, with the Pluto-Mars conjunction, which to me represents some form of terminus or fatality, okay? But I don't think he died. Now, C. Pachenik says he did. I don't think he did. There's too much high strange going on, especially here in the chart, right there. The Mars-Venus conjunction with Neptune in the 8th house. This is weird. This is obscuring everything, right? We know that Neptune basically creates distortion. And that's what's going on here. There's distortion. And with Venus here, there would be some form of accomplice or other person. There's something going on here with other people as it relates to Epstein. Okay, I think this is interesting. I think it's interesting, at least for me it is. But we're not getting the full story, that's for damn sure. But you're never going to see him again. And that, Mary was right about that. Mary, you were right about that. We're never going to see Jeffrey Epstein again. Whether he's in some witness protection program, whether he's, been tortured and killed again, whether he's, in some, Kubla Khan, Xanadu pleasure palace in Tel Aviv, you're never going to see him again. That dude's gone. But there's definitely some prestidigitation involved. And it's here, specifically here, and what's going on over here. Very interesting. His Pluto on the ascendant at that moment. One could make a case that he did die. And that's what we're getting, right? We're getting that he died. That is the tale that we're being told. Over here, there's a different tale being told. And that's the Venus-Mars conjunction with Neptune in the 8th house. The moment of death, right? And what do we have? Jupiter and the moon squaring Neptune. How can we believe this? Can't believe this. We can't. I'm not about to, at least astrologically. You can do what you want. All right. I'm going to drop in another chart here. I had to do it. I'm going to drop in another chart. I want to see what you guys have to say. Let's see what you're talking about in the chat room. Let's see. He is dead, and the case will still live. Could be. I think the case is going to continue to go on. That's what I think. I saw an article a few months ago that Tupac was living in Southeast Asia. I did some interrogation astrology, and it says he's dead. Okay. Well, we got Pluto on the ascendant. That's for damn sure. That is for damn sure that he is dead on some level. But to me, this is tricky. Right there, that's tricky. Mars-Neptune conjunction, because we're not seeing everything. We are definitely not seeing everything with this. Neptune is obscuring what's going on in the 8th house. Yeah, Mars, Venus, women, girls, absolutely. There was something about Jeffrey Epstein that was slippery and charming on some level. But Venus-Mars conjunction will do that. It's a very rare conjunction, by the way, Venus-Mars in a chart. The people that have it tend to be extremely charming. All right, I'm going to get into another chart. Yeah, Bin Laden has died a few times. Okay. Okay. This is going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what you guys, where you guys go with this. Here we go. So I decided to throw Donald Trump's chart up against the Epstein death chart. It's very interesting. Okay. First of all, they almost match ascendant for ascendant. How about that? Almost match ascendant for ascendant. The two charts. Oh, and guess who has Mars and Leo at that degree? Trump. Mars-Mars conjunction. Okay, who do you think pulled the trigger here? Who do you think activated this? I'd say it was Donald Trump. I was thinking, oh, it was the Mossad. No, I think Trump has his fingerprints all over this. Mars conjunction, Sun, Venus conjunction, right? This is Trump, Epstein death is on the outside. So that's okay. So this is Trump's chart. Mars on the ascendant, Sun, Venus in the 12th house. Trump's chart, behind the scenes. Okay? Mars conjunction. Look at that. Look at that. There's behind the scenes machinations here. All right? And by the way, we have the true node, which is at 17 degrees. And Trump has his Saturn at 23, and he has Venus at 25. He has Mercury at 8, so kind of hanging out in there. But I think the charts are almost remarkably similar in terms of their ascendant and time, right? Donald Trump was born at 10:54 a.m., the 7 to 6:23, but the ascendant and the time are very, very similar. And the two Marses match. Sun, Venus conjunction, 12th house, definitely behind the scenes. Look down here. The moons are conjunct. Donald Trump's moon and true node is conjunct off by 1 degree. Trump's got that 21 degree Sag moon, that blunt moon, and the moon was at 20 degrees. I think Trump was involved with this. I think Trump is involved in this. That's what I think. Now, maybe, did he have him killed? Did he have him removed? Was the death faked? But I think he was involved. That's my sense here, especially with these two Marses conjunct. Now, what's really interesting about this is that, what's her name? Giuffre? Is her name Virginia Giuffre? She basically cleared Trump 2 days ago. Said he didn't do anything with her. She kind of cleared Clinton a little bit too, right? She kind of did that. She definitely cleared Trump. And then 2 days after that, Epstein, gone, right? He's gone. So you have a witness who has indicted some very powerful men, Bill Richardson, Marvin Minsky, George Mitchell, just to name a few. And she gave Trump a clean bill of health. And now Epstein's gone. Isn't that interesting? I think it's interesting. I think he has something to do with it. I think he's got his fingerprints on this. That's what I think. Steve Pachinik said this. This is one of the things I did agree with Steve Pachinik about, is that Jeffrey Epstein would not commit suicide. He's too much of a narcissist, and narcissists don't commit suicide. And I would tend to agree with that. He wasn't a depressed personality. That was not his personality type. But when I see this chart, it's like, man, there's a lot happening here. There's a lot going on. And that Mars conjunction is indicative of action and synchronous action nonetheless. And that the emotional motivation right here, with the moon conjunction, let me just say that this was a very good day and moment for Donald Trump. Just based on this alone, right there, right? Like, there's emotional freedom here on some level. It's really interesting. I was looking at Twitter, and everybody knows about the Clinton body count. Of course, we all know about the Clinton body count. But Twitter switched the Clinton body count from the Trump body count. Can you believe that shit? I can, totally. Neptune, trans-Neptune, which is right here, right? So Trump's sun, moon is at 20 degrees. He's at Neptune squaring his moon. That's a very difficult square to have in a chart. Extremely difficult. It's going to be squaring his moon for a while. That means his family life is exposed. That means his connections with his past, because the moon represents the past. They're exposed. They're going to be exposed for a while, a couple of years. That's a pretty heavy-duty square, to be honest with you. And he's got his sun at 22, and Neptune's only at 16. Wait till Neptune begins to square his sun within about a 2 to 3 degree orb. That's going to be pretty intense for Trump. It's going to be a major passage for him astrologically. And that's going to come up about 19 degrees, which is next year. Let me just check again. I was going through the PDF here. Where's Neptune going to be when it gets to 20? Yeah, so Neptune's going to be at 20 degrees in April of next year. That'll be a very interesting time for Donald Trump. Could be very, very tricky with those Neptune squares to his moon and his sun. I think that could be some kind of betrayal. Some kind of betrayal. Certainly feeling very exposed. And Neptune's going to be going into his 8th house. That's money. That's a money house. And I wonder if somehow they're going to go after his money or his resources with Neptune there. Just start draining shit. I wonder if that's going to be the next phase or next step for what's going to go on here. In any case, Mars don't lie. You know, they used to say ball don't lie. That's a basketball saying. Ball don't lie. Mars don't lie. Trump was involved here. Sun-Venus conjunction in his 12th house, behind the scenes. Moon-Moon conjunction, emotional motivation. There's a lot going on here. So I think that perhaps military intelligence or some other group, and I would say quite possibly working with Trump, either snuffed him or moved him out. And I do think Trump was involved. It's right there. Mars, the ascendants almost match, behind the scenes planning, and then the conjunction with the 2 moons. There's the emotional motivation there for this to happen. What do you guys think about that? It's very interesting. I find it interesting. It's going to be like so fucking chewy. This event's going to be chewy. And we're going to be talking about it, of course, until the next shoot 'em up takes place. All right, so what do you have to do? Most definitely, okay, to lock up the Clintons, Trump flipped the kill switch. I think there's a civil war coming. Pono KU, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's going to be very hard for us to not have to deal with the intense conflict that's been boiling and all the propaganda that's been just thrown out there day after day, minute after minute, moment after moment. It's just horrible, absolutely horrible. And it's doing nothing but just dividing the shit out of this country. And of course, that's what the Bolsheviks want. You know, they want to divide the country. They want to split it up. And who knows, maybe people on the other side want it to be divided and split too. I mean, look, there are people who, when they're in power, they don't give a fuck what side they're on. They don't care. You think they care? They don't care. They may run around with a Republican hat on. Very good chance that if the wheel turns or the worm turns, they're turning with it. They don't care. All they care about is power. You think a lot of these people care what the structure looks like? No. As long as they stay in power, they don't care. Some people do care. You know, God bless them. But a lot of them don't. So you could have theoretically both sides invested in a civil war or national conflict. It wouldn't surprise me. But we're clearly getting the left-handed message, which is, you know, a club over our head every single day. And they are in full court press. White people are bad. White people are racist. The country is filled with white nationalists. Everybody is a white nationalist sleeper. Bullshit. It's just total bullshit. But they just keep repeating the message over and over and over again. You know, and then you get people that just buy into the message. And next thing you know, they're going out and they're raising havoc. And they're attacking people that are innocent people because they are so incensed and so pissed, and they've got their own personal vendetta they want to carry out. The next thing you know, it's happening. It's on. I don't think there's going to be a civil war. I think we're in a civil war. It's happening right now. It's on. You know, there are times where if you walk down the street and you're in the wrong place, you will get more than a stink eye. There could be significant repercussions. Well, why don't you go wear a MAGA hat? And I'm not going to go out and wear a MAGA hat. It's not my thing. I'm not even a MAGA person. But try that in some area. What do you think it happened? That's the equivalent of having a Confederate flag. It's just a fucking hat. It's just a hat with 4 letters. That's all it is. It's not some proclamation that you're a white supremacist. For a lot of these people, they just want America to be, you know, leave it to Beaver again. That's what they want. And so they, you know, they say this guy can do it. This guy says he could do it. I can do it. Who else has come along and said that they were going to do that? Nobody. Nobody's come along and said they're going to. Nobody. It's all lip service. And, you know, and again, even with Trump, I'm not even sure if he's really done it himself. I mean, he's made a mess of the border. The border is chronic, you know. And I think that they tied him up by his testicles on that. That's what I think. And I think he's agreed to let the border be a sieve. That's my 2 cents. You know, it is a flashpoint, and they're using it for everything they can in order to further this narrative that we're engaged in racist policies at the border. So somehow we become South Africa again. It's bullshit. Total. But I think we're in a soft civil war. If you looked around and started doing the math, we're in a soft civil war. It's not a hard civil war. It's a soft civil war. And it's unfortunate. Now, the good news is that they stopped that movie, The Hunt. Thank God. Thank God. Universal put the brakes on The Hunt. And they should. They totally should. It's terrible. And if you look at cinema, in the cinema over the last 10 years, it's another form of hyper-intensive propaganda, mind control, and hate. That's what cinema has been for the last decade intensively. It's been dark, it's been satanic, it's been revenge-based. That's what's been going on. It's horrible. Horrible. What's been happening cinematically is worse than what's been happening with the production of guns, I guarantee you. Because it warps people's minds. It gets into their consciousness. It gets into their cells. And it takes them over. And thank God they put the brakes on The Hunt. We need better films. You know, we just need better movies. Because the movies we're getting portray a very grim, dark, and revenge-based version of reality. Would Trump Q want Epstein? I don't know. I don't know about Trump Q. Wouldn't they want him alive? They got plenty of goods on him. But maybe, what are they going to do with him? Pump him for more? They know plenty. I mean, if they've got military intelligence, naval intelligence. They know all this shit. You know, they've got tons of stuff. They've got the NSA. They've got tons of material. They know where the bodies are buried. They know where the chambers are. They know all of it. What more are they going to get out of it? What they need is they need to get fucking Les Wexner. That's what they need. You want to talk about somebody who needs to be in jail? That guy needs to be in jail, and they should do everything in their power to get him in jail. Look at his tax records. Look at everything. That's a fish you want in jail. That's a whale. He's no fish. Jeffrey Epstein was a small fish. He's a small fish. You want somebody, get the whales. And they got the goods on the whales, trust me. They got the goods on the whales. They do. They totally do. All right, where are we? See, total 3 movies in the last 6 years. Yep, bad stuff. Bill Binney at the NSA says they have, of course they do. Of course they have everything. They have everything. They've got this fucking YouTube stream. Are you kidding me? They've got everything. 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 They've got it. It's so hard to be able to, do something in the dark, dank, secret halls of, privacy. This just doesn't happen. And even in those environments, where the most despicable acts have occurred, you think that those places were totally clean, where the people there were so totally corrupt that they wouldn't go say something, or somebody wouldn't wear a wire, or there wouldn't be some form of intelligence being gathered? And of course, the intelligence was gathered. It was gathered by probably Raytheon or Rand or the Mossad or the CIA playing footsie with the Mossad. They got the intelligence. How hard would it be for somebody to go in, to decrypt that intelligence and grab that intelligence? It's not that hard. It's not. It's very hard for these people to keep secrets amongst themselves now, based on technology. They have everything. So I don't think Jeffrey Epstein would make that much of a difference. I don't. That's my 2 cents. It's always about taking the heads off the Hydra, take the heart. Both political parties are corrupt. It's all about, of course they are. Well, I would say that the system itself has been compromised to the point where its immunity is fatal. It's fatal. And both parties have enjoyed the privilege of life in Washington, D.C., and all the perks that go along with it. If you go to Washington, D.C., you can go in with a very, very meager bank account. And if you play your cards right, by the time you leave office, say 5 or 6 terms later, you can be a multi-millionaire. That's how the game works. When you're there, you can do insider trading. You know that? You can do insider trading. Alex Ocasio-Cortez is, she's an actress, and she's a hysterical actress. And sometimes she says absolutely stupid things. But the one thing that she actually said, one of the first days she got there, she got those people on the stand and she started talking to them about how people make money in Washington, D.C. It was probably the most important thing, the most real thing she's ever done since she's been there. And you can denigrate her all you want, but for that 10 or 15 minutes, when she was able to extract from those people the self-interest and the business interest, which, by the way, I'm sure she'll take part in, because she's a hypocrite, that they exposed it. And that's what happens. And so people get soft, and they get these perks, and they go on these political junkets, and they go to this country and that country, and they've got these lobbyists who come in and they grease them up, and they fly them to Israel, and and they get fed aid in Israel. And then when they go to Israel, in many cases they become compromised. That's what happens. They get slipped a Mickey, and next thing you know, they wake up the next day and they got pictures of them and 12-year-old kids together, 13-year-old kids. It happens. And guess what they're doing for the rest of their political career, right? So the corruption is infiltrated. It's infested the system, right? It's this infestation. And in order for the corruption to be able to be eliminated, you have to eliminate certain elements that have become infested in the system, right? And I've talked about it. I don't think there should be any dual citizenship in this country. I don't care what country you're from. England, Pakistan, Somalia, Israel, whatever. No dual citizens, none. It stops. You got to be a citizen. Born in this country, okay? Born in this country. That's the first place to start. Second, term limits. Got to have term limits. Can't get fat and happy, because that's what happens. People get there, it's like, oh yeah, it's a career. No, it's not a career. You're supposed to serve your time for your state and for your people, and then you're supposed to move on, theoretically. Term limits would be a wonderful way to do that. That's it, term limits. The other thing, if you have children, if there is a national conflict where there's the military, your children automatically have to serve. Automatically. If you're in office and they're of age, they have to serve. There's no deferments. Oh, yeah. That'll get people to think 2 or 3 times about war now, won't they? Absolutely. Absolutely. How do you think people will vote on war or be involved in the military industrial complex. That should be part of this. Your kids, they're of age, there's no deferments. None. None. If you can't go to the front lines and you got to go away for 2 years or whatever and learn Morse code or some shit like that. There's ways to do it. There's ways to clean up the system. Those are, I think, 3 very fundamental ways. And they're tied into things that are quite doable, in my estimation. But the system itself is corrupted. It has been corrupted. It's been corrupted. We know it. But the good news is that we're waking up. We're waking up, and that's a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful thing. And there's going to be a lot of furor on both sides over Jeffrey Epstein's death, over Jeffrey Epstein's passing, extraction, however we're going to look at this thing. He's gone. Gone, up in smoke, right? And there's going to be a lot of furor over it on both the left and the right. You know, it's probably the one thing that the left and the right could agree upon would be, you know, should have taken better care of this dude, theoretically. He was in a federal prison. Remember that. That was a federal prison. So anything that went through that prison theoretically had to do with the federal government. That wasn't some rinky-dink New York prison just because it was in South Manhattan or Lower Manhattan. No, it wasn't a state prison. It wasn't a city prison. It wasn't a county prison. That was a federal prison. And that was a prison where for 20, if you're in a certain block, which I believe Epstein was, that's 23 hours. 23 hours where the lights are on for 23 hours. You only get 2 hours off with the lights. Cameras on all the time. All the time. And all you got in your room is a shower. That's it. Shower and a toilet. That's it. 23 hours, the lights in that room are on. Only 2 hours a day they're off. Can you imagine what that'd be like? Oh my God. One of these days, I just hope we live on a planet without any jails or any prisons. Both inside of us and outside of us. They're the worst. Absolute worst. Right, Jasper? Jasper was in kiddie prison. Long time ago. That wasn't a prison. They were just holding you there until somebody found you. We liberated you. We sprung you from that joint. That's what we did. All right. Trump chart, pretty interesting, huh? He's in. Chart says so. Okay, let me check in with you guys. Probably prison just for setups and propaganda. Jasper's going direct too. Let's see, when AOC Chief of Staff just quit of serious FEC charges against candidates. Are well briefed on loss. Some mistakes do not happen. That's right. I think they killed George Carlin. Yeah, it could be. Could be. George Carlin was up there. He had like 3 heart attacks. He had a really, really bad ticker. I think the politicians would find ways to get exemption for the kids. They could, but they'd have to go. My thing is, you got to go do something. You got to go do something. If your kid passes a physical, they got to go. Period. End of story. End of story. There's nobody gets out of it. You know, if they have, I don't know, something that really, like they've got like a hole in their heart or something, maybe they can go learn Morse code. But there's no exceptions. No exceptions. None. Because the people would find out about it. And if they did find out about it, you know, they could set it up. So there are certain things that you do, and if you don't do them, then you lose your seat. See you. You're gone. But it's investment. If they were invested, oh boy, things would change. Things would happen. Okay. What else do we have here? Do you bleed from? Of course you do. Absolutely. Yep. George is very missed. Yeah, George Carlin had a very bad ticker, though. I think he had like 3 heart attacks. All right, so let's get into this. What happens if you have a difficult chart? So I'm going to bring up a chart here. So I can grab this thing. Okay. So this is a client of mine who I think has a pretty difficult chart in some ways. Let's see if this is, you know. All right, so this is somebody who has, in my estimation, pretty challenging chart. And what makes it challenging? Well, first of all, Pluto's on the ascendant. And anytime you get Pluto on the ascendant, that's going to be an intense road for your life. Right there. You're going to go through some shit with Pluto on your ascendant, even if it's well aspected. And for the most part, this is a pretty decent Pluto, right? We've got a trine to Mars, which means this person has fortitude and staying power. Mars is at apex in the chart in Aries. So Mars is one of the more dominant planets of the chart, which means that this person can push through things, right? But Pluto on the ascendant at the anaretic degree is not an easy aspect of the chart. Because with Pluto here, generally people will go through Phoenix-like experiences with their chart. That they will have one reality and it will turn to ashes and there will be a new reality in its place. Now, that doesn't mean that they have to go through it all the time. If you go through one profound and deep personal transformation, you may never have to go through another Plutonian moment on your ascendant again. If you get it, if you totally get it, right? But at the 29th degree, this is a pretty radical anaretic degree. And then we have the inconjunct to the sun. And how do I share with you about this chart? This person was in the media, was a media person, and did production. Media production. Sun in Aquarius, 6th house. Sounds about right, right? Media production, Sun in Aquarius, 6th house, and was quite successful until they encountered a significant transit. And when they encountered that transit, that's when the SHTF, right? And this person wound up losing everything as a result. Lost everything, okay? And a lot of it had to do with the fact that there was also the Neptune square to the sun, which is very difficult, very, very difficult. And when we zoom out, what do we have? We have a Grand Cross. And Grand Crosses are one of the more difficult aspects to have in a chart. And especially in fixed signs, because we have a fixed sign Grand Cross with the exception of Mars. Uranus fixed sign Leo, Moon fixed sign Scorpio, Sun fixed sign Aquarius, and then right there at the end, Mars cardinal in Aries, which I actually think is good, right? So if I'm looking at this chart, I'm saying, well, you've got a Grand Cross. Number one, you're not going to have an easy go of it. Number two, knowing that there is some degree of predetermination, you decided you were going to become a master in this lifetime. You were going to master something along the lines of what this Grand Cross is bringing to you. And number three, with Mars and Aries, you're going to have the fortitude to get through this. Because let's say, for instance, Mars was in an early degree of Taurus. Now we're talking fixed signs all the way around this Grand Cross. And it's almost like a cage. But because Mars is in Aries here, and outside of this sort of fixed diagram, it has the opportunity with the cardinal energy to initiate, to start, to keep pushing. And with the trine to Pluto, there's fortitude. And once you go through the fire with Pluto on the ascendant, it'll change you. Now, what was really interesting about this person is that when I first started to work with them, I realized that this was where the Great American Eclipse took place. It was right on her ascendant. When I started working with her about a year and a half after that. And so I asked her, I said, you remember that big eclipse about a year and a half ago? She said, yeah. I said, I'm just curious, what happened to you during that time? Because as an astrologer, sometimes we have to ask questions. It is better to ask a question than to absolutely assume. Like when you say something as an astrologer, you better know what you're talking about in a declarative moment, okay? Because if you don't know what you're talking about in a declarative moment, that client or that person you're working with will lose all credibility. All credibility. So you better be, all hands on deck when you go declarative. And you can. And there are times when it's in the chart, you just know it, right? It's right there. When I was looking at this, I'm going, what happened? So I asked her, what happened to you? Oh, nothing. I said, really? Yeah. She had the Great American Eclipse right on her freaking Pluto, on her ascendant, and nothing happened. So I got to know her, and I got to understand her story. And what she went through was a complete decimation of her entire identity. Everything. Lost it all. Family, home, kids, lost everything. Her career, lost it all. And what she did is she put the pieces back together again and again and again and built her way up. And so by the time that eclipse hit her ascendant, bulletproof. Bulletproof. She'd gone through the work. She had deconstructed everything. Everything. And that eclipse was not going to impact her. For her, it was just another day. So it's a very, very interesting chart and not an easy one. Moon, Neptune conjunction, very tough. Very, very tough. Difficulties with siblings, one in particular that I know about. Difficulties with siblings, difficulty with one's own emotions. And this is a person who actually overcame addiction and alcoholism, right? We've got the Sun square to Neptune. Remember, I've been preaching about Neptune squares ever since I started this channel. And she overcame the Neptune square. She got sober. She got clean. So how do you overcome a bad chart? Well, the first step would be you better at some point, and she had to go through the fire, obviously, right here. But when she did, she overcame that square. She got clean and sober. And that was the first step towards personal mastery of the Grand Cross. The next step was to keep pushing. To keep pushing, to keep pushing. And even if she stepped on people's toes, and we've talked about her past, and there's been in her past, she's been very difficult to handle. Hard to handle, right? Mars square Uranus. Rebellious, hard to handle. But what's happened is that because of Pluto, right? Because of Pluto and her tackling the square to Neptune and the Sun in her chart, but even the square from the Moon to the Sun, she tackled that too. She had to get down and live in a, guess what? A structured environment. She had to live in an environment that was connected with supervisors and supervision. That's right. She had to live in a home where she was being supervised and ultimately became the supervisor with Saturn in the fourth, right there. And she has been trending upwards and getting better and better and better. But the first thing she did was to cut off the head of the snake with that Sun-Neptune square and to stop the process that was fueling her deconstruction in her own life. And I have a lot of admiration and respect for this person because they bottomed out in a way that a lot of us don't understand or don't. Right now, Saturn's right about here. Well, next year is going to be conjunct her Sun. So when I look at this chart and I see the Saturn-Sun conjunction and coming in to the Grand Cross, to me, this is auspicious. Why? Because she's been working on the freaking Grand Cross ever since her world imploded. So with Saturn on her Sun, there's a new beginning. And what it does for me is it begins to reflect the level of mastery that the Grand Cross itself would infer. We talked about, 30 years ago when Saturn was here and Saturn was on her sun. And believe me, it was the start of a certain period. And over the last 30 years, everything began coming to an ending, right? So this next 30-year period with Saturn is sort of a new beginning for her. And then moving into the sixth house, health, healing. She's really into advocacy, groups, group healing. Done a huge amount of work, huge amount of work. And so this is somebody I could work with. Why? Because they've worked on themselves and they did not give up, but they had to go through the implosion of Pluto on the ascendant in order to get there, right, with the inconjunct. So let's say, for instance, I'm still working with this person and they're still struggling. And they're not, they're actually doing really well. Because they were born in 1957, what I would do is I'd have a look at the progress chart. Let's see what's happening with the progress chart. Let's see what's going on there. Maybe the progress chart gives us some insight into where you are now versus your history and some of the things that have brought you to this place. If for somebody who's, I'd say, over the age of 40, the progress chart is probably a pretty good thing to start paying attention to. So let me see if I can find this. Yep. So here's the progress chart. So one of the things that I could say is, guess what? You're out of the Grand Cross. You're out of the Grand Cross. You've moved to a different platform, a much different platform. And then I would get into a dialogue around the sun in Aries, Mercury in Aries, Venus in Aries, right? And how Venus just moved into Aries, progressed. And how over the course of the next few years, it's going to get closer and closer to her sun in the sixth house. And this would indicate working with people in the healing profession and being somebody who, for all intents and purposes, could be a real pioneer, right? And I would get her to think along these lines and try to get her to understand and bring this into her conscious awareness, right? I'd also be talking about her moon, which is in the sign of Aquarius and has been for roughly, what, about 7 months? About 7 months. And I would talk about this and how it's getting closer and closer to Chiron. And when we get into this, there's the potential for objectivity, right? And there still is this sort of movement around, this kind of situation where she's been living in a supervised environment inside of a home, in a group home, in an Aquarian home. Hello? But guess what? The moon is going to get closer and closer to Chiron, which to me means that there would be a healing of the wound. And that there's a very good possibility within the next, 2 months, that she would reach this moon Chiron conjunction and have some kind of conclusion or resolution about the situation where she's living, who she's living with. She's been living with younger women, right, in kind of a supervisorial role. And from a predictive model, I would say this is actually quite good. That it looks as though there could be some very significant healing as a result of this and the potential to move on, right? So there's a different way to interpret what's going on in this person's life. And it gets them out of that Grand Cross. I wouldn't just jump here immediately, but even in your own chart, take a look at where things are progressed. And the big mover and shaker with the progress chart is the moon, because it changes signs every 2 years. So you want to look at that every 2 years. And when the moon does change signs, it really ushers in my estimation, a very significant and different kind of energy. So the progress chart can give us a different way of interpreting, looking at where a person has progressed to. There's a new narrative that's potentially available. And here it's all about work and pioneering and trying to anchor some of the potential with Jupiter, and bringing it in from this kind of group, sort of 12th house area, which is an area that is not too unlike the area that she's been kind of around, group orientation, group experience, working with people, behind the scenes, 12th house, sobriety, healing addictions, things like that. And to bring that energy over here so that there could be a spirited, kind of push in this direction of the chart. So that's a way to deal with certain aspects, certain elements that may not always be easy. Let me talk a little bit about transits. Okay, transits can be difficult. Transits can be very, very difficult, especially with the outer planets. There are things you can do with transits with the outer planets that can be helpful. There are things that you can't do with the outer planets, and they won't be helpful. Okay? So here's the basic premise that I have learned to live by. If you're going through a transit with Saturn, which is considered the bridge between the inner planets and the outer planets, was often read as an outer planet, where you're going through a Saturn transit, one of the best things you can do is begin to humble yourself. And what do I mean by that? It means that if you think you know something, or you think that you're good at something, and you've been doing it for so long that nobody can tell you how to do it, or there's no other way of doing it, that's when you need to step back with a Saturn transit. Because that's when a greater level of instruction can come into your life. And that's when you have to understand that you don't know everything. So one of the best strategies with a Saturn transit is humility. The second best strategy with a Saturn transit is hard work. You can't get out of the work principle with Saturn. I don't care how old you are. It's going to be there. It can, whatever, it'll be in different parts of the chart, but it'll be there. So you have to be able to throw yourself into Saturn. And when we get into Saturn, there's always going to be 3 retrogrades with Saturn, and the way that those retrogrades work. Let's say you have Saturn coming up on your sun, right? The first time Saturn will, let's say, it'll come across and it'll hit your sun. It'll get your attention. It'll get your attention. It's like, whoa, I got to pay attention to this. Something's happening here. And it doesn't have to be bad. It can be good. You could be like seeing something and saying, you know what, I just had this insight. And if I work towards this thing, I may actually get there, right? Saturn doesn't have to be bad. It can represent an opportunity. But once it moves past your sun, generally speaking, it'll go retrograde 3 times, right? So it comes back, it'll go retrograde, and it'll come back across your sun. And when that happens, generally speaking, whatever planet it is, it could be Venus, whatever planet it is, right? That's a time where you have to kind of rethink what you're doing. Because the Saturn retrograde motion across the planet can be very challenging and tricky. Because you think you may have it, and guess what? The retrograde would say, you don't have it. You have to go back to the drawing board. And then once it goes past that planet, the retrograde's past, and then what happens? You're taking that information, that momentum, and you're figuring it out. You could be thrown for a loss when that happens. And so you'll say, I got to get my shit together. I got to do this. I got to work behind it. I got to get rid of my distractions. I got to deal with this retrograde, and I got to figure out what's happened, and I got to piece things together. I got to reevaluate what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. Maybe I thought I was too good at what I was going to do, or maybe I overestimated this. But that's a really important phase, because what looks like things are being deconstructed or lost is really an opportunity for you to fine-tune what you're doing. And what's not working, you throw it out. You throw it out. And you simplify. Okay. Because then when it moves forward again, then you get that opportunity to like put it back into action. It's like, okay, let's try this now. And then it will move past, right? Because Saturn will do 3 retrogrades whenever it's in a sign. And it usually goes retrograde over a planet one time. It'll hit it, and it'll retrograde, and it'll come back again. That's how this stuff generally works. Okay. That's how you do it with Saturn. The squares to Saturn can be difficult, but again, they're forcing you to work harder. Squares to Saturn are mastery. That's what they are. And squares are Saturnian. They force you to work. You got to work, it's like, in the course that I teach, which you can get on my website, I talk about the aspect of the square. And it doesn't really matter if it's Saturn or not, but it's at a 90-degree angle, okay? If you were to take a weight, let's say my phone is a weight, you were to hold your arm at a 90-degree angle with a weight, what do you think would happen? You would strain your muscle, right? And what happens when you strain your muscle? You break it down and you build it back up again. This is what happens. And that's what a square does. It makes you stronger. So if you've got a Saturn square going on, you've got to work. You got to work with it. Roll up your sleeves. If you don't work with it, guess what? It works you. Grind you down until you say, okay. Right? That's what will happen. I just got a message from somebody. They knew who I was talking about with that chart. Only they would know, though. You wouldn't know. That's why I kept it anonymous. Anyway. Saturn conjunctions. I just talked about the Saturn conjunction, right? The sandpaper effect, going back and forth across the planet, grinding you down, okay? It's the sandpaper effect. Saturn oppositions are tricky because those are changes that are imposed from outside forces. Those can be difficult. If you've got a Saturn-Sun opposition in your chart, you're probably getting heat from an employer. You're probably getting heat from a parent. Maybe you're getting heat from the government. So those changes are coming at you, and you're having to deal with them. Those can be difficult, the Saturn oppositions. So, but there's things you can do with Saturn. Neptune transits, good luck. Neptune transits, I think Neptune transits are some of the most difficult transits. I think they're more difficult than Pluto transits. I think they're more difficult than Uranus transits. And the reason why is because Neptune will hit you like a fucking tsunami and you won't expect it. And when it does, you better learn to swim. And they're very challenging. Neptune transits can be very challenging. Everything can be just fine, and all of a sudden, pow, you get it. And you better learn to swim. What do I mean by that? Well, it means that you got to stay afloat. You've got to do everything in your power to stay afloat. It's essential. And one of the things that ultimately Neptune transits, the squares will help you deal with your addictions. The squares will show you where you're leaking in your chart, in your life, and you get to patch it up. And that's not always easy because there's usually something that you have to give up and sacrifice, right? Because when we get into Neptune, we get into Piscean language, we get into the age of Pisces and the age of sacrifice. So when you go through a heavy Neptune transit, you better be ready to sacrifice something. If you want to get the benefit of a Neptune transit, and I'm talking about not a trine or a that shit's easy. I'm talking about the harder transits. You better sacrifice something. It could be a habit, it could be a thought, it could be a lifestyle, it could be a relationship. Saturn-Venus square. If you've got Neptune coming in square your natal Venus, you better be looking at all your relationships. You're figuring out which ones you really, really need to hold on to. Because those are relationships that can bring you down and drown you. And in the natal chart with a Saturn-Venus square, you may have the greatest intentions and the nicest dispensation, personality, right? You may be great, and you may want to help people, and it's being like tied to somebody at the high seas, and they'll just drag you down. They'll take you down no matter how well-meaning you are with a Venus-Neptune square. And you can drown with a person. You've got that in your chart. The Neptune conjunctions are more difficult in some ways. They can be much more difficult because of the Neptune conjunctions. There is a dissolution of whatever planet it's conjuncting. But there can also be a really high-pitched blending too. But in order for that blending to occur, there needs to be a kind of a dissolution, and you need to let certain things just dissolve and go away. For some people, that can be very tricky because by doing that, they lose all their moorings. What do I have left? What do I have left? Well, sometimes you got nothing. That's how life is. But there are times where you have to let go of a few things. You just surrender and let go, surrender and let go. And then some interesting things can happen. Like there can be like I've seen people go with Neptune conjunctions and have like really blissed out, really high vibration kinds of experiences. In order to do that though, you got to let certain things go. I mean, just, what you understand what's important. What's important is kind of being up here and not down here. But it can be tricky. And sometimes there can be a real confusion. Like Neptune-Mercury conjunction can be very confusing. You can be very psychic, very profound. Like you can read other people's minds sometimes, but sometimes those lines get a little blurry. A little blurry. There can be forgetfulness and stuff like that. Those Neptune conjunctions are tricky. Neptune-Venus conjunctions can be really blissful. Really, really blissful. But you also have to be kind of on your, I mean, if Neptune is conjuncting your Venus, fuck it, have fun, right? Just let go, see where it takes you, don't get too heady about it, right? That's what I would do. But Neptune, sometimes you just have to let go and let God. But the thing that you have to really deal with Neptune, I just keep coming back to the A word. It's addiction, enabling, codependency. That's you get an opportunity to clear stuff like that up. And the oppositions with Neptune opposition to the sun, that's temptation. That's temptation. It's outside forces coming in. But it can also be profound. Neptune's one of those tricky aspects that can really uplift you, really take you down. You've got to be on your game with Neptune, and I would say be lucid and clear. Pluto transits, there's no negotiating. If you're going to transform, you got to let go. So you better let it go, or else you're just going to get ground into like a cigarette butt. There's no negotiation with Pluto. Before and after, get it done, make it quick, make it happen. Pluto rewards people who wake up and smell the coffee and move on quickly. Trust me on that. Trust me. If you're going through a Pluto transit, it'll be over. It'll be over fast. And then you move on. Sometimes you have to deal with some other people during Pluto transits. Like if you're going through Pluto-Venus square, sometimes it can be very difficult to let go of people during Pluto-Venus square, or vice versa. You may be very clear, but the other person is not as clear as you. And they want to hang on for dear fucking life, right? Don't let go of me, Don't let go, I'll die. That's hard. That's a hard one, but it's essential. Sometimes the Venus-Pluto square, you may be able to resurrect the relationship. It can happen. It can happen. But in order for it to happen, the old relationship has to die. Sorry, that's the way it is. That's how it goes. And there's no negotiating. Uranus, I have found, is the planet that gives you the most creative potential. The more that you're willing to institute change and to do it creatively versus waiting for the multiverse to smack you upside the head so that you wake up, the better it is. That's the one planet out of all that group where if you get on the bad motor scooter, you can kind of, you can ride that thing. But you better be able to, ready, willing, and able to deal with it. I had a very interesting reading last week. It is this woman who has Uranus going through her 7th house. And I looked at it and I said, wow, you know, this is a time for you to have relationships potentially with people that are, you know, like outside your, you know, your zip code, which is true because she started having a relationship with somebody who lives in New York and she lives in Canada. But it's more than that geographically, very different backgrounds, different ages, you know, maybe a different ethnicity, different religion. And for her, it was almost all of the above. Younger, she's English, born in England. The guy's younger and happens to be Latino. And it's like right there, Uranus going through her 7th house. And I was like, wow, you're doing it. But here's what got really interesting for those of you who are following along at home. This kid had a Pluto-Mars conjunction in Scorpio. Talk about intense. Hello? This kid is freaking intense. Are you kidding me? Pluto-Mars conjunction? He's a dancer. She has Venus in Scorpio, conjunct his Mars. And fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And she has a Venus-Neptune conjunction, right? So there's this real interesting conglomeration of planets there. I'm like, wow, that's really intense. And this is somebody who had gone through a healing crisis. Serious healing crisis. You can see it in her chart on the 1st house. Neurological problems with her head. And literally having to learn how to do everything all over again. And now she's learning how to dance with this guy and doing more than just learning how to dance. There is some very powerful regeneration taking place on a physical level. And so it's a really interesting story. And basically asking me, like, is there potential for me to be with this person? And it's, you know, we're talking very different age ranges, very different backgrounds. And I'm looking at that intense, you know, stellium of Scorpio planets in the synastral chart. And like, well, this is really, really powerful and profound right now. And you got Uranus going through your 7th house. And I'm not going to say that you can't have a relationship with this person, but by and large, Uranus in the 7th house doesn't always bring longevity with it. And I'm like, you know, and I'm not God. I'm not going to say that you all of a sudden the two of you may find each other. Hell, what was her name? Mary Letourneau, you know, who was the school teacher, and she wound up, you know, having sex with her students, the Samoan kid, and, you know, basically fell in love with the kid, and they wound up getting married and having more kids, right? And some people thought, you know, and she went to jail, and he was there for her when she got, a weird story, right? Mary Kay Letourneau. So it's not impossible, right? With Uranus coming through, I'm like, well, I would just say enjoy it for what it is right now. You know, now she has Saturn in Taurus, right at the cusp of her 7th house cusp, towards the 8th house. When there's going to be Uranus-Saturn conjunction, you're coming up there in about 2 years. So that's when things are going to get really interesting for you, where it comes together. But I would say for now, try, you know, don't put any, and, you know, this is hard too, right? Because women are so much different than men in a lot of ways. Because women, look, I think women want deep connection, deep commitment. That's what they want. It's taken me, you know, quite a few years to really figure that out. And that's what makes them really fulfilled. And when women have that, and they truly have that, they can just check that box, and then they can move on. And, you know, that's a baseline. And I'm saying most, not everybody, but I say by and large. What do most men want? Well, they want to be free and independent. See, that's great, because that's where the cosmic game comes in. And we do this dance around relationship, right? And so what I know is that, you know, especially with those conjunctions, she wants that to last. She wants to be Scorpio fixed forever land, right? But guess what? Uranus is going to square those planets. It's going to square those planets. And I told her, I said, this is around the time when there's a period where you may reevaluate your relationship. And where you go with it, that's up to the two of you. Very tricky, right? But for now, she's getting some great connections, some great love. You know, she's probably, you know, with that Venus-Mars conjunction, he's got Mars and freaking Scorpio. Are you kidding? She's having a great time. Who am I to say, oh, no, don't do that? You know, it's like, yeah, you know, you're being, you know, regenerated. It's okay. It's okay. But just with Uranus, the seventh, you know, you just want to make sure that you understand this. This is a creative opportunity. It's not always meant to last. And it might, but I'm just here to tell you, you know, here's your contextualization around that. It's not always easy, you know, reading charts for people. You get into something like that, you know, and I'm sure this guy is like touching her in ways that she may not have been touched her entire life and feels probably incredibly alive, right? And who am I to say, well, that's going to end. You're the real person for your life is coming. I can't tell her that. You know, she's having this kind of bloom moment. So I have to tell her that, you know, there is a time where you may reevaluate your relationship together. And that time is right around here. You can figure out what you want to do then. But until then, enjoy it. Enjoy the dance, right? Here we go. That's a time. I know, right? Mars and Scorpio conjunct Pluto. Are you kidding me? So when Uranus transits into 1/7th house at about 17 Taurus, will it suddenly or abruptly give interesting encounters with others or what? I would think so. Is that what you got going? But it hasn't brought interesting encounters already. Let's see, possibly the dance. Yeah. Okay, let me show you one more. Let me show you one more. This is this is an interesting person, and one that's this was a fascinating sort of case study, and I'm still working with this person. And he came to me, and I'll show you this chart. All right. All right. So this guy came to me and told me that he's really interested in sports from a business perspective. Like he wants to get involved in buying a team. Okay. He loves soccer. See, he's from England, right? Of course he loves sports. He's a Sag rising. He's got Pisces, second house. And he's got, you know, a lot of Aquarian planets here. But what really grabbed me was right here, the third house in Aries, right? All this Aries stuff going on. And he was telling me about his life. He was telling me about his background a little bit, which I really don't want to get into too much. But he is really involved in sports and loves sports. He's got businesses. And with the sports stuff, he'll get to a certain point and then just kind of evaporates. You know, and that's team, right? Sports are team. We're talking about team sports. And he's got Neptune in the 11th house, which is not easy for team sports. Not unless you own a, what do you call it, synchronized swimming team. Neptune in the 11th house. It's just not easy, especially with the Mercury square and the Sun square, because things can be very slippery and hard to deal with, you know? And he's really got his mindset on, you know, being in a sports team, a sports situation, right? But he's got some interesting stuff here. You know, he's got a trine. He's got a Mars trine to Neptune. So that's kind of supporting Neptune. But there's this unrealistic kind of energy here. But this guy's so into sports. He trains and works out. So how do I tell him that I really don't think team sports are his thing? not with this chart. So I got him down into his third house. And I said, here's what I think. If you want to get in, and he's got Mars in Aries, right? I mean, this guy's got some juice. He's got a biquintile with Jupiter. And we know that Jupiter is connected to Sagittarius, which with the first house rulership of Sagittarius. He's going to be interested in sports. But he's got Jupiter and Virgo in the 8th house. And I think, well, this is training. You know, this is like training. This is health. And I said, well, maybe, I said, do you like the gym? He says, I go all the time. I said, have you ever thought about owning a gym? Yeah, my brother and I have talked about it. 3rd house. I said, here's what I think would be good for you. I think you should own a gym. I think you should own a gym. It should be a performance-based gym. You should get into health, anything associated with health, either supplements or techniques or whatever. And I think if you want to get into sports and you want to theoretically, because the only thing you can do in sports is you want to own something, right? If you don't own something in sports, you don't own anything. If you don't own a stadium, if you don't own naming rights, if you don't own an athlete and their contract, you don't own anything. You may as well just go work for somebody, right? So I said, you theoretically should get into either boxing or MMA because he's got Mars, Saturn, and the true node in Aries. And that's where you could theoretically have some ownership. And the gym could be a place where you could run all of that, right? 3rd house, local, very active stuff, right? But if you want to get in the game, it's about ownership. And for you, I believe it's in the realm of gladiators and warriors. All this Aries, right? Then the sextile to Venus, having relationships with them, getting them under contract. But buying the team, I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to work. Not with Neptune in the 11th house, the house of teams. And with the square to the sign and the square to Mercury. You got to watch out. You have to watch out for resources here. So it was an interesting kind of, and I'm still working with him, and we're gonna tee it up again here, hopefully soon, and see where he's at. And with Chiron coming in here, it's an interesting kind of piece, right? Because Chiron is when you could feel both vulnerable and more perhaps prone to take a risk with Chiron. So it's you've got to, it's very interesting. Very, very, very interesting proposition here. In the 3rd house, with Chiron in the 3rd house, which he has, right? And I know because I've got Chiron in my 3rd house, and you can have pretty far out ideas with Chiron in the 3rd. And you can be very split. It's true, he's split. He's got one side of his life, which is super business oriented, working just fine, making lots of money, but it's not what he's into. He wants to get into the sports world. So we last left off with him, with me forwarding the idea to actually work with boxers, fighters, MMA, Chiron, maybe taking the risk. Work in progress. Work in progress. But I would say team, very difficult. Neptune in the 11th house. Very difficult. All right. What's going on with you guys? Let's see what's happening in your worlds. A lot of information tonight. Been going for a while, huh? 142 people watching. For it's worth, once you deal with your unresolved mother issues, you'll stop attracting the same type. Guys, there's a lot of therapy going on. That's kind of a cool death sport. You think? It is the way it is, man. I don't have judgments sometimes. I don't have judgments. I know that there are people who grow up in certain parts of the world, and that's a reality for them. It's a reality. A lot of times there are boxers who, go that route and their lives are ruined. And some boxers actually have a whole other level that they're able to bring to the table, in their life. And I've seen this with football players. Football players come from really shitty parts of the world, really bad homes, broken homes. And, what do they have? They have the field. And that's where they can get their aggressions out because there's some agreement there. I don't have any judgment against it at all. None at all. It's part of our society, until further notice, part of our society. Even Mike Tyson's in that camp. Mike Tyson was really, really fucked up growing up. And he went to train with Cruz D'Amato and it changed his life. But Mike Tyson is really just a big pussycat underneath it all. He had to go through all that shit, right? But one could make a case that, boxing saved Mike Tyson. Who knows how many other people it saved? Let's say he doesn't find Jim Jacobs and Cruz D'Amato. What happens with Mike Tyson? How many people might he have killed if he didn't have boxing? So I'm not going to place a judgment on. I'm not a huge MMA fan. It's like I'm not huge. I mean, so it is what it is. It's a sign of the times. In a lot of ways. Certainly not. I know it's going to sound sexist, but I'm not into watching women fight. I'm just not. I don't think it's a good look. I'm not into women, punching and kicking and, blooding themselves up. This is just my own personal thing for me. Yeah. Okay. All right. I think we're out of here. So much good stuff, man. This is such a great chat room. I check in and you guys are having your own dialogues. You're connecting with each other. And you know why you're able to do that? Because and some of you have never met, most of you haven't met each other. I've met a couple of you, I think. Well, maybe, certainly on screens. But the thing is that there's so much trust in that chat room. You guys can talk to each other and listen to each other. And that happens when you show up on a regular basis. And I think it's so unique. I go to a lot of live streams. A lot of them are just, you can't have any real dialogue in a lot of ways. And I know there are some live streams that there are very, very, loyal people and they say hi to each other and stuff. And I get that. But this chat, this live stream is really, really special because same people show up and consistently, and you've gotten to know each other. And it's really therapeutic. I have never seen any other chat or live stream that is therapeutic like that. God, makes me feel proud. I almost want to cry that we're part of this experience. It's really cool. And I know I can be an asshole sometimes, but that's just the way it is. Doesn't detract from your, I don't like boxing or fighting. I do enjoy the chat and the slash, including them that participating. We enjoy you. Recent territory trip, I saw it. We talked about it. I talked about it, when was it? Thursday? I think I talked about it on Thursday. The Tarantino film. Yeah, he's rewriting history and fairy tales and creating new timelines. Maybe not in a good way. I don't have a problem with boxing. I don't have a problem with kickboxing. People, I think, should learn how to box and learn how to kickbox. I think if people learn how to, if you're a woman, you don't have to go fight in an octagon, but it might help you if you can understand, 5 or 6 pressure points and a couple of takedown moves, just in case you needed to use them. Okay. If I had a daughter, I'd make sure she knew how to defend herself. 100%. 100%. I would make sure she knew how to defend herself. Because maybe at some point she'd have to. Right? You go to China, you go to North Korea, you think those women know how to defend themselves? Bet your ass they do. They take care of themselves. They're not octagon fighting, but they can take care of themselves. All right, I'm out here. Hey, thank you so much. Depending upon what's going on with Epstein, I'll see where I am tomorrow. I may crank it up. I said a lot about it tonight. There's so much out there right now. We'll see. I may be on the 15 minutes tomorrow. If not, I'll be certainly back on Tuesday. But thanks for being a part of tonight's show. Okay. All right. My natal spiral chart. Thanks. I missed out. It was a nasty rewritten fairy tale. What end? It's really manipulative. It is. It's very manipulative. And we are going to meet. Can I do USA Progress chart and transits? We'll do it. We'll do it next week. We'll check in with the USA. And the Progress chart is really interesting. Very interesting. And not entirely positive. It's not entirely positive. All right, use your head to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. Thanks again. Come see me at robertphoenix.com. I got a new face on the website. This video will be up there. I'll work on it probably tonight and tomorrow. But thanks again, everybody. I'm really always thrilled to do this on Sunday nights. I'm glad you're a part of it. Could not do the show or anything without your participation. You're all a part of it. Look forward to seeing as many of you as I can in October at Harvest Moon in Hill Country. For those of you who signed up, you will get an email tomorrow with specific instructions as to what to do. I promise. Until then, have a great night.